This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm all right, man. I felt good about that prime time after Monday night, but it's messed up my whole week of preparing for the Steelers on this short week. I don't know how players mess with their schedules and don't go Sunday to Sunday because I don't even have that much to do, and it's killing me right now, man.
Yeah, having to be a win and a fun show afterwards, and then people online. I didn't go to bed till like 2 o'clock, and then had to get up and work the next morning. And I was so confused that today was already Wednesday. It's really been a struggle. So tonight's show is brought to you by our sponsors over at Uncle Jumbo's, presenting tonight's show, and our friends at West Herb. We'll get into their segments later, but tonight we're going to open up with a very special guest. Many of you guys know his name from his playing days. Also has a show talking about the Clemson Tigers, as well as obviously his Pittsburgh Steelers. Our friend Levon Kirkland. Levon, how we doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Appreciate it. Doing great, man. It's been fun. This was a big game for the Bills on the schedule when it came out, but I don't think very many people saw it to be the possible, NFL game of the year at the point that it is now, with both teams playing so well. So certainly been a lot of fun getting a look at it and getting ready for it.
Oh, yeah, no question. Both teams are coached very well. Two great young coaches. They emphasize defense, and, both teams are playing at a very high level, as you said before. So this game is going to be interesting. It really is.
Yeah, I had seen a tweet, Greg, and I don't know if anyone can confirm this, that I think it was Thad Brown here, Buffalo Reporter, tweeted that this is the highest combined record of a Sunday night football game in the history of Sunday night football. So, the best combined record to ever face off in a Sunday night football game.
19-4 is pretty good.
It sounded true.
Yeah, 19-4 sounds pretty good. And Levon, you bring it up here. We joke. Obviously, we're used to the greatness of Belichick, so everybody just kind of hates him with a burning passion. Mike Tomlin's one of those coaches that it doesn't matter whether you like the Steelers or not. It's hard not to like Mike Tomlin. He's such, he's the kind of guy that I love Sean McDermott. I'm so happy to have him. I wouldn't trade him for anything in the world. But if we didn't have Sean McDermott, I wouldn't be upset if Mike Tomlin was my coach.
Yeah, I tell everyone a story about me going up there for an internship, and I can understand why the players love him and why he's the kind of guy you want to play for. And I played for the great Bill Kaiir, and I played for Andy Reid and Mike Holmgren. And I really just felt like Tomlin was really special as far as getting players to understand what's important and also understand why they're there to play the game of football. He makes it a lot of fun, and I can understand why he has so much success. I mean, he's relatable too, because he really cares about the game. He may not do what Bill Kaiir did emotionally, but you can tell that he's emotional about the game. And that's not for everybody. That's not everybody's personality, but it works for him. It works for the organization, and they've been very successful. He's been a great coach for a long time. You don't realize he's coached there for, I think, 14 seasons already?
Yeah, somebody in the chat here was just saying it's crazy that he's only 48 because he feels like he's been there for so long, but he started out so young that it's an incredible run. And you look at the fact that the man's never had a losing season. That's insane. He's never had a losing season in 14 years. That's unbelievable.
Anytime you do anything that long, you're going to have some down years and some.
Last year should have been.
And last year, with all the turmoil as far as quarterback is concerned, they should have probably had a losing season, but they rallied and they played decent compared to, if you look at what they had as far as quarterback, and they just couldn't really get it going. But now, Ben comes back and they're playing very well. They lost, on Monday, but I kind of understood the loss. If you're talking about 3 games, how many, 3 games in 12 days?
Yeah, that's a rough stretch.
Yeah, I played the game, and I'm telling you, after a Monday night game, you felt like, oh, my God, I'm spent. So I can imagine, having that kind of rally and playing that many games And, they had an opportunity to win, but they didn't. But, a lot of times after a loss, sometimes you can regroup and even play better.
Now, I'm glad we got to talk about both those William and Mary guys because they must make good coaches at William and Mary with both Tomlin and McDermott. But having been in the Steelers organization with, I would say probably intimately, having played there, I was just saying offline to Greg, everybody thinks about this Patriots dynasty as like the number one dynasty of the 2000s and stuff like that. But I do think if somebody was really to go back and look at the win totals and the success rate and the lack of turnover in an organization, the Steelers got to be right there with them. Having been in the building, knowing these people, I think here in Buffalo, we feel like it's starting to build that between Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and having a really good lockstep GM and coach. What makes Pittsburgh and that organization so successful where there is no drop-off for that period of time? Because the NFL is designed for teams to have drop-off and the salary cap to, even things out. But the Steelers just don't seem to be impenetrable to that.
Well, I think it always starts with the top. Any kind of organization, any group, any business, it's got to be from the top on down. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have been very consistent with the Rooney family. And I really feel like the Rooney family does a good job of being in control, but also letting their people do their job. For instance, letting their GM be the GM, allowing their coach time to build. Really, both the GM and the coach time to build. And I really think it's the same vision and mission that's been going on, even when I was there. When I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could feel the tradition, you can feel the legacy, and especially being a linebacker with the linebackers they had there. I mean, you either accept that challenge or you don't accept that challenge. You either become a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers or you're not going to be a part of Pittsburgh. And that's what I feel is dynamic about that organization. It's a belonging, and you want to be there, and you want to take ownership for your individual play, because I think they do a good job of not only embracing the city, but the team kind of, is a microcosm of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Pittsburgh natives and how blue collar they are and how they just go to work, and it's not about complaining, it's about getting the job done. I think that's what you feel with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it was a great organization for me to be part of, and it really seems to be carrying on at this point in time right there. Only 3 coaches in the last probably like 30 years or so, probably even more than that. I mean, not a lot of organizations can really say that. There's a lot of changes. I mean, you look at the Patriots, they've had several different coaches as well. So, yeah, I just really think that it's just well-designed, well-built. The blueprint is solid, and they keep bringing in the right people. And also, with that little bit of change, you really don't really change as far as the system is concerned either. The defense has probably been the same since God knows when, the 3-4. The offense has been pretty much the same, especially since Ben has been there. So when you go in, the system. It makes things easier. When you have to change systems all the time, every 3 years or so, it just makes it very difficult. And players don't tend to buy in as much. So, yeah, when you can be consistent, and guys buying in, you have a great product. And the Pittsburgh Steelers has it. But I tell you what, man, Sean has done a great job with the Buffalo Bills and how they're playing, and you can see the blueprint. You can see what they're all about. And believe it or not, he was a quality control guy when I was with Philly. So I know Sean pretty well. Him and Ron Rivera. I mean, they coached a lot. Ron was a linebacker coach. Sean was a defensive quality control guy. And you can tell that he was going to be a pretty solid coach. I didn't see the head coaching as fast as it happened, but he's doing a really good job. I mean, the guy really loves football, and, Leslie Frazier's on the team. That's one of my favorite coaches of all time. So those guys, they know what they're talking about, and they know how to do it, and they've done a really good job.
It's taken him a little while to get the right pieces there, but having I think you talk about how quickly McDermott came up. I don't think it was an accident that he brought somebody like Leslie Frazier with him who had that head coaching and leadership experience, so that he wasn't trying to take a stab at it all on his own the first time. I think that combination has really helped him get established so quickly.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And you're talking about learning from Andy Reid, who's one of the all-time greats.
Oh, yeah. Also,
defensive minded, you're looking at Jimmy Johnson, who was
he talks about him all the time
of all time, and how Jimmy was aggressive, man. And Jimmy, he was kind of he's kind of a gruff, but he knew his football. And you look at Ron Rivera, all those guys that he's coached. So although Sean is really young as far as a head coach is concerned, he's been around a lot of great coaches. And when you can soak in that information, man, difference.
So let's dive into the matchup a little bit here. I'll start on the Bills' defensive side of the ball in this Steelers offense. You have, the Steelers, you get so used to what you had for so many years. And then early in Ben's career, it was that kind of grinded out, steady running game, pass when you need to. And now these weapons across the board, you talk, going all the way over, Chase Claypool is looking fantastic as a rookie, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Eric Ebron. I think the Bills have a very strong secondary and can keep up with there. But talk a little bit about, just how the weapons have come together where Ben, he has somebody open so quickly. He's getting rid of the ball and just constantly moving down the field. I'm curious, I think some fans watched the game on against Washington on Monday, and it seemed like Washington's front seven had a pretty good game. And, when you go and look at the box score, 0 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, and even in a game that wasn't Ben's best, he still was getting the ball out quickly. How has that been to see that transition from that kind of historical Steelers run game into now Ben just kind of coordinated, almost playing point guard on the field?
Well, I think a lot of times some of the best guys who they play for a long time, they realize that they have to adapt to what they are at the point in time. Ben was a different quarterback in his earlier days. Ben would hold the ball. Ben would buy time. Ben would make some, spectacular plays. And a lot of times he did a good job of using his legs and his feet to get around. He's not that guy anymore. So he has to get the ball out a little quicker and kind of on time as he did before. He was a unique quarterback back in those early days because, normally quarterbacks are kind of on a rhythm. He wasn't always. And so it was really kind of hard to anticipate him as a player. You can be a coach and you can draw it up, but when you're going against the real bullets, it can be a lot different. And I thought that's what Ben brought to the game. So he had to evolve. He had to say, you know what, I need to do something different. I can't hold on to the ball as long as I used to. He does it when he really, really needs to do it. But, yeah, you can see him throwing the ball a little quicker, getting it out a little faster. And with all the weapons that they have, they don't have like a AB anymore. But they got some really good weapons that you can spread the ball out a little bit. They're not as great as far as running the ball is concerned. And, during this late period of the season and into the playoffs, the running game and the defense has always been said to carry a playoff team. So they're going to have to find better ways to run the ball, but they are efficient enough that they can score on you, they can score enough points, and that they can keep the sticks moving. And a lot of times that's kind of what you want to be able to do. Keep the sticks moving, get into the scoring area, get you some points. So they're very efficient. I don't think they're the most dynamic offense in the NFL at this point in time. And their running game is not that great, but they do find ways to move the ball down the field, and they're good enough to get in that end zone.
I was kind of curious as I was kind of preparing for this, and obviously it's hard not to see Steelers games because they're on, national TV very frequently. When you look at the numbers of how few sacks they've given up, I was expecting maybe a little bit more dominant performance from the offensive line. And as I started to watch film and break down to get ready for this, I feel like it's really not all the way back to Marino or Peyton Manning, where it's just kind of makeshift to make it didn't matter what the line did. The ball was out so quickly, but it was pretty darn close to that. I was really shocked how consistently Roethlisberger was getting the ball out so fast. So I'm curious, do you think the offensive line is there to be able to open up holes? I wasn't sure if it was them or now getting Connor back. If he's going to be ready to go, do you think that can be the spark the running game needs?
Well, yeah. People kind of sleep on the running back position. And I think that's always a mistake, because when I played, and I know it's different, but, man, a running game, a really good running game, and you always want to be balanced if you possibly can be, because this is the trick. If you're kind of one-dimensional, teams can game plan you, and they would just stop what you do best. And they won't really worry about what you don't do well. So when you can have both things going at the same time, now it's difficult for a defense really to key on you. So, yeah, I think that, they can get it correct. But, man, sometimes it's just hard in the middle just to change your game plan, especially if you're running certain type of plays. And I just really don't think the Steelers have that kind of dynamic runner. Connor is a good runner. Snells is okay. He's just kind of a backup. Nobody really explosive that can make things happen on their own. And sometimes that's what you need. You just need a running back who can, break it. And they don't really have that guy. So a lot of times they kind of struggle in the running game. So I'm not sure if it's the blocking scheme, or if it's the offensive line, or the running backs are not that dynamic. I don't really know exactly what it is, but sometimes that could be the issue. Is I just don't think they have a great running game, and I think that can make them sometimes they can get bogged down a little bit, because, like I say, if you're not diverse in offense, man, good teams will just shut you down what you're good at. They'll make you do the other. And I think that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are. But, hey, man, they're doing well so far. You can't really sleep on or kind of, hate on their success right now. But I just don't think the running game is quite there yet. I don't think they have a dynamic runner. So it makes it a little tough.
Yeah, I think you nailed it in terms of they're not the most dynamic offense in the NFL. But right now, that doesn't matter, because their defense is probably the most dynamic defense in the NFL. And we're in a year in 2020 where defense is not doing very well across the league. Every other defense in the league seemed to come out struggling, where the Steelers just seem to come out right out of the gates as the best defense in the league and really haven't stopped. So even though that offense at times throughout games in the film that I watch would struggle and give the ball back to the other team 3 and out, and they get the ball right back. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that are moving the ball with any type of consistency against this Steelers defense. Kind of, before we get into the individual pieces of this defense, you talked earlier about, that scheme's been in place for years with the Steelers organization, that 3-4. Talk to us a little bit about why it has worked for so long, and then some of the pieces that this particular unit has and why they're having so much success.
Well, I look at it this way. It kind of starts up front. You got to have the good nose guard. You got to have the guy who's able to clog up the run and make sure that the running game doesn't get started. And then you look at what they call the defensive ends, really mostly in a lot of other defenses, is their defensive tackle or defensive guard. Those guys, they do more of a gap technique. They do like a 2-read defense where they take on the tackle. So really, honestly, in that defense, you're taking away the tackles and you're taking away the center. So now you got 4 linebackers that are really working on just 3 guys, if you think about it. The 2 guards and the tight end. Because you got everything else shut down, And so that makes if you got the linebackers and they have done a great job throughout the years making sure that they have the linebackers in place. Yep. So think about the outside backers. Usually when that 3-4 is going, you got two dynamic outside linebackers who can rush the passer. It doesn't work as well when you only have one dynamic outside linebacker, because now the offenses, they have a tough time really declaring who's coming or not. And then now they can't really slide to one side or the other because both guys are just as dangerous. And then they do a good job of using their two inside linebackers, not only as run stuffers, but guys who can cover and also guys who can blitz the quarterback. So now you basically have, almost 7 guys who can really rush the passer, and they take away the center and the 2 tackles. So now the linebackers can really flow as far as the running game. 3-4, it's really hard to run outside on a 3-4 because you got those really good athletes. And they can contain it. They're making everything come back inside. So that's why the defense is pretty good. And then in that kind of scheme where they run the 3-4 blitz zone, you really never put your DBs in harm's way. A lot of teams who blitz, their defensive backfield is left, they left the drive, man. It's one-on-one coverage. Yeah. So what if you don't get there? Then it puts a lot of stress on the DBs to play man-to-man coverage all the way across the board. And I don't care who you are. If you don't get back to that quarterback, man, it's going to be hard to cover professional wide receivers.
Absolutely.
So I think they do a good job of doing a lot of good zone blitzing. They do some man-to-man, but they do a good job of making sure that they don't put their DBs in harm's way. And I think that's why that defense has been so successful, because they understand the personnel they have to get. They understand the linebackers that will fit in. They understand the inside backers. They know what to get in the front line. And if you already know your blueprint, you can go out there and really scout and really personalize what you're going to have on your football team. And so do that better than anybody.
So we talked about the strengths of that. Now, if you're an opposing team like the Buffalo Bills and Brian Daboll looking at this defense, there aren't a lot of weaknesses. I guess there's some injuries right now at the linebacker, so I'm sure they're going to try to attack some of that. But as far as the defense and the scheme as a whole, how would you, knowing that type of defense intimately, how would you attack that? Like, where are the weaknesses, and what should a team like the Bills do to attack it?
Well, I think a lot of times what Buffalo has, I think, also in Josh Allen, it makes it difficult for a defense because he can scramble. He's a tough kid. He really can make a lot of the throws. The guy has a really good arm. When you have a dynamic quarterback who's I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're back. You're good.
It makes it extremely tough. It really does, because that quarterback is that extra piece that you really can't account for. You can only spy him but so many times, Right. So I think that if you can get your quarterback some play-action passes, some bootlegs, get him moving around a little bit, that can cause some trouble as far as the defense is concerned, because there's nothing worse than when it's 3rd and 10 and your quarterback, especially nowadays, can scramble out, maybe get 8 yards, 9 yards, not even a first down. Now you have a 4th and 1. And stopping somebody on 4th and 1 is just really difficult. Yeah. It really is difficult. So that's why, having a dual threat quarterback like Josh Allen makes it tougher to really prepare, because you really can't prepare. You can try to, and you can try to simulate it as much as you possibly can, but this is not The Sims. It's not the same, Putting it on the board and, going in practice may seem like, okay, we got it, but then the real deal comes out there. Now it's a little tougher. So I think the Bills at the quarterback position have what it takes to really give the Pittsburgh Steelers a lot of trouble.
I like hearing that.
So, hearing your insight, you know these teams, you know the coach. What kind of game do you expect on Sunday? We're going to put you on the spot. Give us a prediction for this game.
Man, I really don't like doing predictions.
I know. He makes me do it every week, too.
I can see it being a 3-point game easily. I can see it being a fourth quarter game. I can see, momentum jumping from one side to the other side. I think it's going to be a really tough game. Honestly, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers fans are going to hate me for this, but I think this is going to be the second game that the Pittsburgh Steelers lose.
Hey.
No, we appreciate it very much.
I'm just saying that because you guys are for the Bills. I'm just objective, and I kind of tell it like it is. I think the Bills they're trouble, man. That's a tough out.
I think if this game was in Pittsburgh, I think that there's I could see it going either way. I think this is very possible that it's a playoff preview, and I think we could see a rematch later on. And I'm just excited and hope that we get to see a good competitive game.
I know.
Tell the people a little bit about your show with Clemson and where they can find some of your other work.
Oh yeah, sure. Gosh, man, I'm doing 3 different podcasts at the
awesome.
time. So, Belief. You can find it on that network. We're on YouTube and all that stuff. And, basically it's just me and Will, and we talk about Clemson football, which I always kind of go in depth with Clemson football, but there's not a lot of people that want to talk to me about it. So, fortunately I have an outlet where I can talk about it, give my point of view, try to get some insight, especially from a guy who's been a part of the Clemson universe, the Clemson nation, and somebody who's got their name on the stadium. And so I try to use that for good and try to give them someone who's not only played on all 3 levels, but have coached on all 3 levels. And I don't think you get a perspective like that from a lot of places. So we just try to dive in deep to the Clemson football, what people really want to hear, so we do that. I do a podcast with a fan media show. Well, it's not a podcast. I'm sorry. It's a Zoom show that we talk about the Clemson Tigers again. But we really wait till after the game. And I have 4 other passionate fans, and we talk about what we see. Yes. We talk about it from a fan's perspective, which isn't always objective. Which isn't always...
We can appreciate that.
Yeah. Sometimes you have the orange shades on, but we try to get a raw, emotional opinion an hour after the game is over with. And,
awesome.
And you can look back on it and be like, maybe that wasn't correct. But I like the fact that we watch it and then we talk about it right after. So we're, win or lose, man, you're going to get some emotion about it. So that's a great part, and that's on YouTube at this point in time now that you can reach on it. And then I have what I call a very important purpose, and if you can see the shirt I have, Educate. Yeah. I do a podcast called The Inside Blitz with Levon Kirkland, taking from the all the inside blitzes we did in Pittsburgh. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make South Carolina aware of the problem that we have, which is our students are 43rd ranked as far as college and career readiness is concerned. So what we're trying to do is really get behind a movement and, make a commitment to a movement to getting our students in the top 10 in 2030. So that's our campaign. We do that by educating, empowering, and encouraging. And we're not really trying to build a program, but we're trying to point people in the right direction to programs that are out there that can really help them. One of the problems we have in South Carolina is that we have no problem getting companies to come here. We just have a problem with having the right workforce because we're just not ready. And, that problem can, cause students to be left behind, communities in our state. So we're just trying to make people aware of that. And what the podcast does is it brings out leadership. It's a leadership and a sports podcast. So we talk about leadership. So we bring in people like, for example, the movie that's coming out, Safety on Disney.
Yeah.
The story is based on a guy named Ray McCaffrey, and he brought his, he took care of his younger brother when his mother couldn't. And that was a big deal back. I mean, the NCAA suspended him, all kind of stuff. The fans were saying this is not right. He's just trying to take care of his brother. And so our first episode, which is going to be debuting tomorrow in our second season, we talked to Ray, and he gives an incredible account of his story. So we think that those stories can resonate with our citizens in South Carolina and really hopefully the country, and people can get some motivation, they can get some tips, some leadership, some motivation. And like I said, we can empower them, we can educate them, and we can encourage them. So that's really kind of my baby.
I can understand why. It's an amazing calling.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think life is about being gracious, having a purpose, and giving back. So that's what I want to be known for, man, giving back.
That's fantastic. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time tonight, and looking forward to a fun game here. So thank you very much for your time. The chat and the comments have been fantastic. Just appreciating all your time, and not only enjoying you as a player, but hearing your insight tonight. This has certainly meant a lot.
Oh, well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Anytime you need me, let me know.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's great to talk.
All right.
It's always great, and obviously the guys in the chat here talking about being able to hear, former players and guys who understand the game as intimately as someone like Levon does. It's fun to be able to hear that, and hearing him talk about a game like this, it really helps be able to kind of put it into perspective that this is a big deal. That this is a huge setup to be able to understand what this game means nationally, what it means to people covering the Steelers, what it means to fans throughout the NFL. I had a chance to Tyler's in the chat here tonight. I was on with them for Renegade Blitz earlier today, and this was a game that a lot of Bills fans circled at the beginning of the year, but I don't know that a lot of NFL fans were talking about as this being a big time game. Like you said, coming up, this is the biggest game in Sunday Night Football history. The 19-4 combined record between the two teams, and this is right there for NFL Game of the Year. And to be able to have that here is just unbelievable. That now the Bills are in that kind of position that this many people are excited and talking about this game. It's awesome.
Just talking about it like that makes me want to vomit all over myself, to be honest. I just hate all that built up pressure. But yeah, no, dude, when I first looked at the schedule, I hate doing season prediction stuff because we just never know how it's going to turn out. I think a lot of people early in the season were sleeping on the Steelers. I looked at that team and thought, like, dude, if Big Ben comes back and he's even a quarter of what he used to be, that's 10 times better than Duck Hodges. And if the way they finished that season, like, this was going to be a team that was going to cause a lot of problems. I didn't expect that they would go undefeated through the 11 weeks of the season. I think some of that is not to take anything away from them. I don't know that they were an 11-win team at that point, but they're right there. They're right there with the Bills. I think they're tied kind of with the Bills at that next level after the Chiefs. Like, there's the Chiefs, and that's the top of the NFL, not just the AFC, and then a few other teams.
So Steelers, Bills, Saints. There's been moments with the Titans. There's been moments with the Buccaneers. There's been moments with the Seahawks. But honestly, every team has looked pretty flawed at some point, and the Steelers kept finding ways to win in the games they looked flawed. So that's really was their calling card. It wasn't that they were some, untouchable juggernaut. It's that they kept finding a way to win. And that's honestly part of my worry about this weekend is that the Bills have to play really clean, really not flawless, but really clean football. Because if you give a team like this extra possessions, if you have red zone turnovers, if you give up big plays, if you end up losing the turnover battle, and just like we always track the toxic differential, if you let them have more big plays and more turnovers, they know what to do with it. Then that experience of all those games that they did figure out a way to win, whether they deserved them or not, they figured out a way to win every single time. That's going to come into play, and that's what I'm nervous about this weekend.
Yeah, I'm It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be sloppy at times for the Bills. You know, we saw what they did to the 49ers. You know, Eric put out some stuff and it showed up all over film. The 49ers were very passive. And, you know, with Josh Allen and everything that he was seeing pre-snap is exactly what he saw post-snap. Yeah. And that's fine if you're getting pressure, right? Like you can do some of that stuff if you're getting pressure. They were doing that and not getting pressure on him. And when they were getting any pressure, he was able to, you know, get out of there really easily. That's not going to be the case here with the Steelers. They're going to throw some looks at him with the zone blitz stuff that are going to give the offensive line trouble with blitz pickup. It's not going to be vanilla. Even when they're not blitzing, this offensive line is going to have their hands full with this defensive line. They're deep. They get pressure. They're big bodies. It's going to be tough to move them in the run game. It's going to be tough to block them in the pass game. Josh Allen's going to have some pressure. So this is going to be a real test to see if that sugar high Josh is really gone, because we didn't really have a chance to see it in the primetime stage against the 49ers because they just were overly passive against them. This is going to be the opposite test. And statistically, with pressure, he's done really well this year. So we're hoping to see it, but I don't know that he's going to go up again. I mean, we were just talking about it before we went live here. 3 of the top 10 guys in pressures, according to PFF, are lined up against him in this front 7.
Yeah,
like, that's insane.
Let's dive right into it here. I mean, it's when we talk about our friends over at West Her, you're looking for a vehicle here. Once it's time to do that, you got to get down to numbers. There's some scary numbers with this Steelers defense. And, you were doing some of the prep for it. The Steelers have the 2nd, 5th, and 11th top guys in pressures. So, TJ Watt has a ridiculous 64. Stephon Tuitt, who a lot of Bills fans don't understand or know the name of and is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, has 54. And then Cam Hayward's right behind them at 46. So we talk about what a great season Jerry Hughes has. He has 46 as well, tied with Cam Hayward. They have him and 2 more guys with more than that. It's going to be by far the biggest test. If the Bills offense passes the test of the Steelers defense, there are no more rocks to throw. There are no more stones to throw at them. There are no more, shots to take at them. This is the ultimate test.
Yeah, and it should be. I mean, this really should be what you think of back in the day of real heavyweight bouts. Because I do think, to your comment earlier, I think there's going to be some sloppy stuff, in my opinion, from the Bills. There'll be a turnover or 2 in this game, but there's going to be some opportunities to take some big shots, too. Even though Steelers have the number 1 pass-rated defense, they do still give up some big plays. Like there's big plays out there to be made, and the Bills have the number 4 passing attack in the NFL. So this is probably as close of a big matchup in passing defense versus passing offense as the league see. We talked about the records going head to head. This is the matchup I want to see, is this Bills passing attack going up against this defense, because it isn't just pressures. They have good defensive backs too, and they have a good scheme where guys are in place. Minkah Fitzpatrick is one of my favorite players to watch outside of your Budda Bakers and stuff. Like, I was pounding the table, even though the Bills didn't need a defensive back. Like, just find a spot, bring him in, and make him your nickel, whatever. Make him your, yeah.
He's their Tyrann Mathieu. He's their Budda Baker. He's their movable chess piece that could just be a problem. Again, talking about the show earlier with Tyler, he's not the kind of guy that's a slot corner that's going to lock down Cole Beasley. Like that's not what his thing is.
No.
But he's going to read Josh's eyes, and if he makes that play in the big moment where Josh locks onto a receiver and he floats over, he's really, really good at that. When you don't realize that he's dropping back into that zone, into another guy's area you didn't expect him to be, Josh has to have the discipline not to let that happen, because they not only can pick the ball off, he'll take it back for a score.
Yes.
And when you talk about this defense, they have like 6 of the top graded guys in the NFL, all in the front 7. When you look at the individual play of the secondary, it's pretty good. And then you talk about, we're not sure if they're going to have Steven Nelson back in the slot. We're not sure if Joe Hayden's going to be back from his concussion. They're very much going to be dependent on that front 7, which is dominant and monsters up front. But if Josh Allen has the discipline to get the ball out early and Brian Daboll creates a game plan that he's not setting Josh up with a bunch of 7-step drop play action that's going to let TJ Watt get home, if he can consistently accept the fact that you probably need to do death by 1,000 paper cuts here, they have the weapons to do it. They can do it. I'm really, really curious how they decide to attack this crazy defense.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, we saw the type of problems that Bosa created just 2 weeks ago now, and that was just him really with nobody else lining up. Now you add him with Hayward and Tuitt, and there's a number of other guys that can cause pressures on this team too. And I just think, I agree with you. It needs to be getting the ball out quick, some of the misdirection stuff. We might need to throw a trick play in there once in a while to offset some of that aggressiveness, but you have to do something. The way Bosa was able to disrupt the passing offense, there's a lot of, we fought with our friend Bruce about the Bills trying to establish the run, Bruce Nolan over at Buffalo Rumblings in that game. And I think some of the attempt to establish the run was because of the type of pressure that Joey Bosa can put on a Josh Allen. You don't want him back there taking hits like that. And Josh doesn't, even as good as he's been this year, when that type of pressure like a Bosa's coming, he doesn't process still quickly enough to do what Ben Roethlisberger is doing this year, which is just getting the ball out quick all the time. He still wants to, hold the ball and make a bigger play. We've seen it on tape a number of times where guys are open underneath and he doesn't always still immediately take that. In a game like this, if anyone's open underneath, you've got to just take it and play, like you said, that death by 1,000 paper cuts. And it's going to be tough. They're going to put the ball, I think, in harm's way a couple of times. But I don't think the Steelers' offense is the type of offense that we've talked about where you can't turn it over and give them the ball back. Like, there's going to be opportunities where if the Bills do turn the ball over a couple of times, I think that they can get it back from the Steelers' offense. I don't trust them to go down and every time they get the ball score on this Bills team, especially the way this Bills defense is trending. I looked at the DVOA, and the rankings are creeping up every single week across the board. It's fluffed from a bad start. This defense is much better. I think they are a borderline top 10 defense, and I think that they can give this Pittsburgh team some struggle. So I'm okay if the ball hits the ground, once, or an interception happens. It's not the end of the world against this team.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it. And, with our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight, we're usually talking about a Bills player, but I just want to talk about, can I please find another Watt brother or Bosa brother somewhere out there? There's got to be someone that we can go find. After seeing what the Bills struggled with Joey Bosa against the Chargers, and that we started to chip a little bit with tight ends, we tried to send some help. TJ Watt's even better, or having a better season. I don't know if he's more talented than Joey Bosa. He's having even a better season.
He's right there.
And he's playing better than Joey Bosa is. TJ Watt's the defensive player of the year right now. I think he's having a better season than Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald's having a ridiculous season. TJ Watt, when you talk about 64 pressures, 12 sacks, so he's not just getting pressures, he's getting home, 25 quarterback hits, 27 hurries. He's consistently doing it every single game. This guy is a major problem. And then when you talk about the fact that, Cam Hayward, Tyson Alualu, Stephon Tuitt, and now it doesn't have Bud Dupree on the other side. And I don't think Alex Highsmith is at Bud Dupree's level, but he's pretty good. He was a rookie that I liked a lot coming out of Charlotte this year, and he's playing pretty darn well for them, especially when you have the other 4 or 5 guys along that front seven that they do. TJ Watt terrifies me, and that they're going to isolate him on Darrell Williams.
All day.
It's going to be Darrell Williams' toughest matchup of the year. They don't move him around as much as what the Chargers move Bosa around. They're going to set him over there on the defensive left side and tell him, go get Josh Allen. And I think that we could see some Lee Smith helping. I think we could see some Dawson Knox helping. I watched some film. He's somewhat susceptible to cuts from running backs. So obviously Devin Singletary is not going to stand up, block him man to man, but Singletary can cut him, and he you can get to his legs that way. They're going to need to be really creative. And Gordon was talking about it here. I want to see a ton of jet motion. I want to see jet sweeps. I want to see a couple runs right at him just to kind of get him on his heels. I want to see some RPO where Josh is reading him. And they need to be able to stress him, because if you just sit back there and try to think you're going to go regular offense, just drop back and pass, he's going to create issues that we're not ready for.
Yeah, it's the least exciting thing about this game. When you look at you look throughout the league and game changers, it's mostly quarterbacks, right? Like guys that just take over games and you're really scared of. I think when we look back at this season and we think about the best players that the Bills played, it will be Patrick Mahomes, that probably TJ Watt and Joey Bosa, these pressure guys, and these are the guys that are hitting
Aaron Donald.
Right?
We literally got probably the 3 top pass rushers in the NFL right now.
Yes,
we played them all this season.
I don't want him anywhere near Josh Allen, and it terrifies me. I think he's going to be in his face all game. I think he'll probably hit home a time or two, and it just. I don't know. I'm still having a little bit of shock from what Bosa did. I like our offensive line. I like Darrell Williams. This is just a bad matchup for him. We talked about the bad matchup for Levi Wallace this last week. Athleticism of TJ Watt going up against Darrell Williams is not a matchup I like. And you said you can bring in Lee Smith. When you bring in Lee Smith to chip, that's an extra weapon that's not out there.
It's a tell also. I mean, they know that Lee Smith's not going out in some pattern, although we saw the one replay today that when he went out, no one guards him, so maybe that's a little something.
Yeah, maybe that's a play for next week. Yes, but no, it is a tell, and you're limiting a little bit what you're able to do on offense, but they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to bring in multiple guys and scheme everything that way. But again, you do that. This isn't the Chargers. You still have Tuitt and Hayward. You have these other guys where you don't want to leave. I know Bachter's played well, but I don't want to leave anybody.
I don't want him one-on-one with Stephon Tuitt. I just don't.
No, I don't. And I mean, Mitch Morse is great, but sometimes he struggles to anchor with a pass rush. And so there's going to be problems. This is the biggest test. We've got this offensive line back for the most part, playing with some consistency here for a couple of weeks. This is going to be the biggest test. I know Tyler Dunn put out
secret weapon.
Yeah. If that happens, I'm going to be really excited. Tyler Dunn had put out, that tweet about the problems with the shifting around on the offensive line and that there might have been some frustration among players. This is going to be the biggest test for Bobby Johnson's unit and whether or not this is a unit that we can trust going into the playoffs, because we're going to see maybe this team again. There's a potential to see Myles Garrett, who we haven't even brought up, and we're talking about these pass rushers, a phenomenal guy. So he
might be the most physically gifted of the other guys are out producing him right now. He might be the most physically gifted of any of the guys in the NFL.
Yes, and can cause pressure. So they've got to figure out how to. You're not going to stop these guys, how to contain these guys from causing the type
Don't let
of
them ruin the game.
Like Bosa did. Bosa almost single-handedly won that game for the Chargers and kept them in that. And we can't allow that to happen against the TJ Watts of the world and the Tuitts and the upcoming schedule. So this is a great test to see if they're ready to at least contain it.
Jeremiah's the only guy watching on Facebook. Everybody else is in YouTube. You're not alone, Jeremiah. There's a lot of people watching with you.
Craig's grandmother watches on Facebook, I think.
Yeah, I think my mom does too. Yeah. So as we're going through and taking a look at it now, it's something that, we've talked about some of the breakdowns that we go through. We've talked about some of the different pieces. What do you think we're going to see in this game? What are you predicting is going to come out of it?
So the thing that I'm most excited about when I look at my breakdown is I think there is going to be some opportunities that favor the Bills in what we talk about ad nauseum here. At least I love to talk about is toxic plays, explosive plays. I think, this Pittsburgh team's really good, but they do have a tendency to give up some explosives. They're not gaining a lot of explosives on the offensive side of the ball. So I think this is a really good game for toxic differential to be the thing that pushes this Bills team. Because I don't think, we talk about the 1,000 paper cuts. I really don't know that that's a good way to score 27, 28 points on this team. I think they're too good. They're going to get you in the third and long. They're going to get you with a sack on second down every once in a while. And Borges is going to be out there putting the ball, back in the Steelers' hands. So I don't know that that's a path to success. You might be able to score once or twice with a long sustained drive, but you're going to have to find some chunk plays in this game and some big explosive plays. I think they're going to be there. I've got Buffalo 23-20 I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think Josh is going to be able to, on national TV, lead them into a drive to win the game. I think it's going to come down to whoever has this last possession. It's going to be, they talked about that Monday night game being the most physical game of the year between San Francisco and Buffalo. I think the good thing for Bills fans is we saw the Bills match the physicality of a very physical team, and I think they're going to have to do it again because this is going to be another one of those physical old school games in the trenches, and I think the Bills have shown that they can match it. And I'm picking them 23-20, but man, this is a coin flip to me, man. This one can go either way quick.
So I think it's really interesting how equal both matchups are. The Bills offense is playing phenomenal. The Steelers defense is playing phenomenal. The Bills defense is playing pretty good. The Steelers offense is playing pretty good. It's really interesting how it matches up like that. And it's going to see that strength versus strength. And I won't say weakness versus weakness, but relatively it is. Right. It's going to really come down to who can make the better net positive play, who can overcome the other team's strength or overcome, not make the mistake on the other team's weakness. They have the highest sack differential in NFL history right now, plus 35. They have 35 more sacks than what they've given up. The Bills have more sacks than what they've given up, but it's 10 more. Yeah. They have 35 more sacks than what they've given up. It's not because the Steelers' offensive line is phenomenal. It's not because they have this amazing blocking scheme. Roethlisberger gets the ball out insanely quickly, so quickly. It also means that I kind of think they don't take advantage of how good of a deep threat James Washington and Chase Claypool are. The Bills have to force that, and that's going to come from inside. It's going to take a special effort from Ed Oliver, Quentin Jefferson. We saw Vernon Butler have a flash game against the 49ers. We need them to get into Ben Roethlisberger's face, force him to get the ball out quickly, and then our secondary needs to tackle because they do have some athletes. Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson is a slippery guy. They have to get those guys down. They're going to catch some balls. I think that this could be a game where Juju has 9 catches for 94 yards. Deontay Johnson has 8 catches for 87 yards. It can't be 8 catches for 140. You can't let him break the tackle and go long. If they do that, I think they can control this game from that standpoint. And I think the offense can make enough plays with the secondary that they can make plays to make this happen. If they don't let TJ Watt take the game over, which he's fully capable of, if they find a mechanism to at least neutralize him. You're not going to get rid of him completely, but hold him from completely taking over. I think the Bills can take this game. I have it 31-27. I think they're going to be able to score. No defense has stopped him yet, but this is the biggest test they have so far. I'm really curious if this was, this is the first game where I genuinely am upset that there's no fans there. This would have been such an amazing game for Bills Mafia. A full day of fueling up on liquid courage, Sunday Night Football, game of the year. This would have been the most raucous crowd ever. And this is the first time all season where it's genuinely hit me. Oh man, this sucks.
Yeah, there was one game in November where it was like 60 here. I forget which game it was on a Sunday, and I was like, this would have been a great game to be at. You'll never catch me at a primetime game because it's way past my bedtime, and I got to do this show with you. But I sort of agree with what you're saying in terms of how cool of a moment it would be, but I think Josh Allen might get a little too up for this game if the whole place was rocking.
That's not a terrible point. That's not a terrible point. Maybe Sugar High Josh is reduced because he doesn't have the crowd giving him the adrenaline.
Especially on a game like this, maybe at least in that first drive or two, and just launching the ball. But no, I think the thing that scares me of what we haven't seen on film is the Steelers. Tyler mentioned it, their play action game, but more the run game. I think we've seen that's the weakness of the Bills. If you're an offensive coordinator and you're trying to attack the Bills defense, even though they've turned it around over the last month, and they did a great job against the 49ers, who are one of the best in the league at running the ball, I still get concerned that is how teams are going to attack you. And I don't want to be the team where their running game gets going and opens up against, because then that becomes a real problem. And then that does give Ben a little bit of time in the pocket, and things start to open up a little bit more. And you do have to bring safeties up a little bit. So I'm looking to make sure that the Bills really establish themselves at the line of scrimmage. I think the Steelers are going to try to get the run game going. I think they want to get that going before the postseason kicks off here, and I think they look at the Bills as an opportunity to get that started. I think the Bills need to stop that run game early in order to have any chance of just keeping things in front of them and containing this offense. And yeah, like you said, Ben's going to give up. He's going to get his receptions. He's going to get passes out. It's going to come down to tackling. So people are going to be probably very frustrated with the cornerbacks, and they're giving up all these. You're going to see Taron Johnson give up receptions. You're going to see Levi Wallace or Josh Norman, whoever's in there, give up some receptions. Tackling's going to be huge. You hit it on the head. They got to wrap up. And so far, they've been doing it last week. Yes, it was frustrating to see Levi give up those plays. Yes, it was frustrating to see Nick Mullins, throw on this defense. Those guys weren't getting out of tackles, and those are some of the best yards after catch receivers you're going to see.
Debo is Debo. That's where his nickname came from.
Yeah, to be able to see them get out of that game and tackle well, that feels good. That I think that they are a pretty good tackling team. Whenever this team has issues on defense, it usually comes down to tackling. So I hope that they've got that in check, because like you said, Washington I've seen him do it. He can break them real easy. Juju can get out and break one. So you got to keep it all and allow them to get some receptions, but make sure you're wrapping up.
So the biggest takeaway for me from this game is I hope everybody enjoys this. We've waited so long for there to be a game with national prominence that everyone is not only going to be watching, but looking forward to. People are excited about a game that involves the Buffalo Bills. Every single show is talking about it. It was leading every talk show. Every podcast has a segment on the Bills Steelers game. Everyone is talking about this game. It's been so long since people gave a dang about the Buffalo Bills. Enjoy every second of this. It's going to be fun. I think it's very likely this is a playoff preview and someone that we meet again in the playoffs, and that the winner of this game, I don't know that it declares all that much of what's going to happen in the rematch. I think that this is the kind of game that we've waited 25 years for, this kind of matchup, and it's so exciting that it's going to be fun and action-packed and two good teams going at it, and the Bills get to be a part of that, and it's been a long time since I've got to say that.
The coolest thing I've seen that really made me realize, like, wow, we're here finally, is the people talking about playoff or the scenarios to clinch the division.
Yeah.
Because normally this time of year we're talking about scenarios to stay in the hunt, like maybe be in the hunt.
Intricate circumstances that if this and this and this happens, we could go on a run, and if we run the table, we could get the 6th seed.
Yes, and all these games have to lose this week, and then we can still be in the hunt, possibly. Now we're looking at, and there's scenarios for clinching this week are a little bit intricate of what would happen.
That'd be a stretch for it to be this early, but
the fact that we're even talking about that, it's like one time I was got into a VIP section in the Mohegan Sun, and there was like pro athletes back there, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I supposed to just grab drinks? I don't know. This is my first time. Somebody tell me what to do. That's how I don't know how, in that tweet.
Yeah, you can't yell at us to tell us to act like we've been here before, because we've never been here before. I don't know how this works. I don't know how good football teams fans are supposed to act. I've never had one.
Yeah, so enjoy it. Like you said, this is, we could vomit all over ourselves on national TV. I think all Bills fans feel like that can happen at any moment, but I'm going to enjoy the lead up to this game so much, because I've got people messaging me from all over, just being like, wow, your team's really good. Wow, Josh Allen's really good. I can't wait to see them play the Steelers. Like, I've never had this happen before. This is so cool, and I hope that we can continue to have nice things.
So a quick example that I'm going to give. I know a lot of people were super excited when Sam Monson did the Josh Allen apology letter. Someone that Aaron and I know, and Eric knows very well,
he's been on the show,
that we've had on the show, that I respect greatly. Today, Michael Kist did the Josh Allen apology letter. And although Michael is one of the most ridiculously sarcastic humans I've ever met, he's a really smart football guy. He knows football. He's the guy that, in case you don't know, would always put out the
blooper reels,
Josh Allen blooper reel of all his horrible throws, and he had plenty of ammo to put those together all the time.
The Mitch Trubisky ones were better, but
yes. But having someone like him finally kind of take the step to be like, you want to know what? I can't fight it any longer. He's good. Regardless of the kind of joke that's turned into, somebody like Michael finally taking that step, that means a lot to me because he's someone I respect his opinion. He's a really smart football guy, and having everyone like that coming around, and our friend Brother Bill making the videos, the video of Monson as the Grinch, and finally getting over the fact that, it was there, just having things like that. This is the most fun season of football I've ever experienced. I wasn't old enough to truly experience those early 90s runs. Like, I watched them. I was there. I was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I was aware of it. I didn't really understand and appreciate how important that was at the time. This is the most fun I've ever had watching football, and I can't wait to watch more of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was so young during that run, and it was fun, but I didn't grasp what I was seeing and then having to go through the drought, I think made it even more so really appreciating what we have now. I talked to my neighbors who have a kid that's in his 20s, and this is the first time he's seen a good Bills team. And now he's finally becoming a fan. Like, he was like passively a fan for years, and now he's like, hey, I'll jump on. Like, I'm into this now. One more thing I want to touch on before we leave, not about this game particularly. We've been blasted for years about pounding the table over culture and process and things like that. To hear Levon Kirkland talk about, when we talked about, what makes Pittsburgh have this type of success that they've been able to sustain over time. And he talked about the blue collar attitude, playing to the city that they live in, all these things. People give Sean McDermott such a hard time for when he talks about how blue collar Buffalo is and how tough and gritty it is. And they just chalk it up as like, oh, it's just PR and he's playing to the city. To hear a former player talk about going to a team where that type of culture is in place and that it matters is all I need for the validation of what we talk about here and think about, that stuff does matter, that you kind of take on the identity of where you are and, you pound that into your team and you build a team in that image. It works. It's proven. The Steelers are one of the most successful franchises in the history of the NFL, and that's what they do. So I took, out of all the stuff we talked about, I really kind of took that and said, wow, that really hits home with what everything Sean McDermott's doing here.
Yeah, and you guys are going to hear it from me a lot this offseason. The wait until you see the fruit that bears from this kind of season. This coming off season, there's going to be a nuclear winner in free agency. The fact that the Bills are selling culture, fit, Josh Allen's highlights, and the coming to be your best self, and how to be able to rebuild value by looking good. Wait until you guys see some of the values that the Bills get with people signing on to rebuild and make themselves look good. This is going to be a new experience for us. The Bills have had to overpay for talent for so long. That's going to change, and it's going to be fun this offseason. I think it's going to start. So, Aaron, we got a couple more days here. It's weird that it's already Wednesday and that we're already into this. Tell the people where to find you.
You can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. A lot of Christmas talk. So if you don't like Christmas, don't come knocking.
I can't lie. Your lists are pretty good. You've got some good rankings out there. If you guys want to see top Christmas songs, top Christmas movies, maybe some Christmas cookie rankings coming up here.
I think so.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You guys can find me at Greg Tompsett, hanging out in the Cover One Slack channel, talking to Bills people on Twitter, going back and forth. Thank you for our presenting sponsor, Uncle Jumbo's. Thank you for West Herr. On behalf of Aaron Quinn and Greg Tompsett, you have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.